Hey y'all, I'm your host, Aaron Smith of the Offshore Marine Service Association. Each Friday, I'll bring you the Offshore Briefing, a quick rundown of the week's notable developments, updates, and news you need to know in the offshore space. Whether you're on deck or at your desk, we're glad you're here.
Welcome, everybody.
You two planned this, didn't you?
No, I just knew you were going to do it.
Hello, everybody. I'm pleased to have you
Tickled.
as listeners to the Offshore Briefing. I'm trying not to say the word welcome. Screw y'all. As always, I am your host, Aaron Smith, and as their last ever appearance on this, I have as my co-host, Ashley Smith and Angel Johnson.
Hello there.
How are y'all doing?
Just wonderful.
We are recording, well, I was going to say we're recording as always on Thursday afternoon, but we're not because
We're doing earlier Thursday afternoon because I'm being selfish today.
It's not afternoon yet.
I mean, morning. It's basically afternoon. In fact, it's an hour after I asked to record because
I'm sorry I had
It's
work
24
meetings.
minutes after.
I'm sorry that I
Thank you.
am
Yes.
taking of my vacation time to go YOLO solo with my friends at Jazz Fest. And I'm excited about it. And I'm going to be like all the middle-aged women YOLOing out to Kings of Leon.
Yeah.
And I'm excited. And I don't feel guilty about
Who
it.
was it last night?
So
there
you
was
can
some
suck it.
one of the high schoolers was
One of the
like,
junior
I wanna
boys
come.
said-
I was like, "Are you a middle-aged angsty
Yes,
woman?"
Yes. Okay. Okay, but enough making fun of me.
All right. Well, why don't you?
Okay. I was going to talk about something related to maritime. However, I would love to get y'all's opinion on, which this does, and I have questions about it, that's why, on Trump, his decision to downgrade marijuana and
medical
the
marijuana
yes.
to a Schedule C,
And
Schedule
how-
3. I forget what it is.
Yeah, which I think is really fascinating. So how does that, I just like, what is going to be the long term of that? Like, does that mean like people on vessels, if they have a medical marijuana, like how does that work? You know what
Really,
I mean?
where this will affect the maritime industry the most is actually not that. It's actually this weird ruling from HHS that needs to happen right now. It is the procedures for oral testing, because right now you can only test for marijuana via urinalysis.
And I believe we put out an alert about
Yes,
this.
We
we
did.
have put out an alert, and we've actually signed a letter to HHS.
Correct.
There's very specific procedures, and they are not going to allow this to happen until 2 labs in the United States reach accreditation. 0 labs in the United States have reached accreditation because accreditation just like it's an impossible route to go. So there are labs that can do this, that are utilized for commercial purposes, but they are not allowed to do government drug testing until they meet this accreditation standard, and no one can meet it. It's
That's
just completely impractical.
So fucked up.
So because of that, you have this system which will continue in perpetuity for that only urinalysis will be allowed for drug testing for Coast Guard drug tests, which means it's capturing everything from the last 3 to 6 months.
Now, does it also, how do they do it for like train drivers,
All the same.
truck drivers?
All the same.
They're all
All the-
urinalysis?
yeah. It's all government approvals. Yes.
So fucked up.
Yes.
Meanwhile, in high school, they would drug test us, cut our hair. I didn't do drugs, shockingly. But like the girls that did were never scared because they knew they didn't send it in. They just pretended. But they would cut my hair. And I'd be like, could you not cut my hair? I swear to God, I didn't do any drugs. But anywho, I digress. Okay. I just thought that was interesting. And then it seems like they're just going to downgrade it more and more, which leads me, my ADD brain, to go into a whole nother section of like, how do you have people in jail over shit like this?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
how is that going to affect? Like, it just doesn't seem.
Well, the
Or like
chain.
anyone caught in Denver who, if I was arrested with marijuana in Denver, Colorado, pre it being legal, I would have to have been let out, right?
No.
That's
It's not.
that's
not-
so messed up.
Criminal justice works.
This is why. This is why I need to build my own society. And we just YOLO.
I think everyone would like
We
that.
watch Netflix. We work.
And
We
say
help
YOLO all
others.
the time.
We YOLO all the time.
Print your-
Solo YOLO.
Print your own money.
Print my own money, obviously. We'll get into that on another podcast. Don't tell the listeners.
It's like what Manning used to call my old boss Manning Faracha used to call it. He wanted to make a junta, but it was going
Yeah.
to be a happy
a
junta.
happy junta. I want to make a happy junta. Anywho, okay, that was mine.
All right,
It wasn't as weird as you thought it was me, was it?
Angel.
I think you should go first because mine's is a history lesson, so it should
Okay.
go like that.
All right. So I want to talk about how something that we've been working on, and it's been working on for a few weeks, and we got the first part of the issue sent out yesterday, and that is, all vessels are not created equal. The amount of different classes of vessels is really staggering when you get into it, and I'm not just talking about the made up commercial names that we make up in our industry to try to get a leg up on each other. Like, for example,
Let's be nice.
what's the difference between an MPSV, an IMR, and a light construction vessel?
I don't know, but let's be
There's
nice.
not. There's not a
Okay,
difference. What's
okay.
the difference between a PSV and an OSV?
Nothing.
There's not.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about those differences, but what I am talking about is that an OSV is not a tank ship.
Correct.
It is not a tank ship, and it shouldn't have to apply to the same standards of a tank ship because it can't. It can't. Those standards were not written for OSVs, nor should they apply. And look, for all of their faults, and what we're approximately 55 episodes into this podcast of us talking about the Coast Guard's faults, I have to say the Coast Guard regulatory system addresses the differences of vessels better than any other flag state on paper. And there's an important term there, and we're going to come back to it. On paper, the Coast Guard system addresses vessel by vessel or class vessel type specific rules better than other flag states. You think about how U.S. vessels are categorized into subchapter L, subchapter I, subchapter T, subchapter M. Other regulatory schemes don't have that and just have vessels. And one example is IMO. The IMO first wrote their chemical code in 1986. They then wrote in 1989 a resolution for how the chemical code should be applied to OSVs because, OSVs are carrying a lot of chemicals that in certain percentages and amounts are toxic. They're not always toxic. They shouldn't be always considered as toxic, but in certain amounts, they should be, and the appropriate protocols should be adopted to make sure that's safe. But that's different than a tank ship. They can't comply with the tank ship rules. And that's what the resolution in 1989 realized, and the Coast Guard applied that to correctly. But then in 2018, the IMO released OSV specific chemical code, not a guidance, a code. And the Coast Guard applied that to OSVs. But what changed was they didn't apply it in a common sense method. They applied it as just across the board, very rigorous standards. And they even applied it to percentages of the chemicals that were too low to matter. So, for example, have you all seen non-alcoholic beers? The proliferation of non-alcoholic beers.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
but those always confuse me because they have something in them. It's just non-alcoholic.
Exactly. That's my point.
Like,
if you look
I actually just in the refrigerator, I saw it today and I was like, is it not? And I was like, ah.
But what they have is the standard is if you have less than 0.5%, you're considered non-alcoholic because you would have to drink 100 of them.
Which I'm sure an alcoholic would.
Yeah. So, well, the same way, if you have a chemical that can be flammable, but it's only 1% of a substance in a tank and the rest of that substance is water, it's probably not going to catch on fire.
Right.
because it's 99%
If it
water.
was mine, it would catch on fire.
Well, the same way, that's how the Coast Guard is applying the chemical code now to vessels. So what we did to address this, and this goes back to what I said previously about the Coast Guard on paper has a very good system of applying vessel specific or practical rules on paper. Because this chemical code, again, it's an IMO standard. So that means it applies to everyone in the world. But what the other nations are doing are they're just exempting their vessels from having to comply with the rules. And the Coast Guard, because of one man who decided we're never going to use an exemption, has decided that no, we won't use this. So U.S. vessels are put at this impossible high standard while everyone else. So since 2018, 15 vessels have been given waivers from applying to this code. And those 15 vessels get to compete against U.S. vessels that have to meet the full standard. And that's not even counting under that. You also, where a flag state will just do the Jedi mind trick and will just say, these aren't the droids you're looking for, and will deem practically and reasonably that they have met the chemical code. And Coast Guard, just one man who doesn't even work at the Coast Guard anymore, decided we're not going to issue waivers.
But that's how everything they do acts. I mean,
Exactly.
that's why I'm like, this is just.
So AMSA, in conjunction with API, is addressing this matter. And yesterday,
I love that we did it together.
yes. Well, congratulations, Coast Guard. You have united API and AMSA.
Yes.
Like, good job. We are engaged in litigation against each other,
Yeah.
but we agree on this topic.
But also
Good job.
shout out to Tim Charters.
Tim Charters, great human being.
Wonderful human being.
Yes. So we've sent a letter
Gotcha.
highlighting all of these problems and highlighting the solutions, showing exactly where under U.S. regulations and under IMO guidance, you can do this deemed practical and reasonable and say that a U.S. vessel has done everything to be safe. You can also issue a formal exemption and equivalence report to the IMO showing that this vessel has done, while it might not be able to meet X, it meets Y, Z, A, B, C, other letters. Therefore, it's safe too. That's what the Coast Guard should do. Also, if a vessel has previously carried a chemical safely, just because the chemical classification changed because someone decided it should change,
Doesn't
the
mean they
chemical
can't
didn't
do it.
change.
Yeah.
It's still safe. That's what they should acknowledge, that and just allow that to be grandfathered in. So we sent that letter in yesterday. We sent it out to AMSA members yesterday as well.
And I got some really good feedback from it.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
So
it comes from me, so you don't see that, but I did get some responses.
Good. So yeah, this
Chevron?
and we are addressing some other ways that we are going to be proceeding that we have after this letter has gone in and been socialized by the Coast Guard. So just wanted to highlight that
Yeah.
working with
Golf
API,
clap, API and AMSA.
yes, working together.
Yeah.
Dogs and cats living together. So,
What
all right,
movie's that from?
Ghostbusters.
Okay. So mine is I saw an article and it is actually a multi-part series
I thought you say a multi-poodle. It's like, oh, yeah, about poodles.
examining the innovations, breakthroughs, and pivotal moments that have shaped the U.S. since 1776. And this is their multi-part series is because the United States is approaching the 250th anniversary. Specifically, I wanted to talk about the safety standards. Whether you're working offshore or on cargo vessels, anywhere at sea, the systems in place today were designed to keep people alive when things go wrong, but the systems were always in place. They actually track back to one specific event, but I want to leave that event for later and let me see if y'all can guess the event. So, one of the main frameworks that was created because of this event was SOLAS, which is the International Convention for Safety of Life in Sea, or Life at Sea,
Life
sorry.
at sea.
Yep.
So
And you
let's-
need that when you operate the AMS International Plan. I've got all the details for everyone.
And SOLAS sets the baseline for safety at sea, covering ship construction, life safety equipment, communication systems, and emergency procedures. Another thing that was put in place was International Ice Patrol, which I didn't know existed until today. And that tracks iceberg movements in the North Atlantic and provides warnings to vessels.
I'm going to guess after Titanic.
You're correct.
Oh, is that what all this is from? Oh, oopsies.
No, well, that's it.
I didn't mean to.
I think that's where Solus came from.
Well, I was looking
the
in my
Titanic.
notes.
Yeah.
Solus is applicable, obviously, for international voyage, but your tonnage too, correct? I forget it off the top of my head.
You can be operating in United States waters and have to comply with Solus.
But
and
it's
that's
the tonnage of your vessel, and I have it in my emails. I just can't find it because I have brain fog.
So, like I said, these systems weren't always in place, but yes, Ashley.
Sorry, wah wah.
No, this is fine.
You can bleep me out.
They were put into place because of the sinking of the Titanic. So when the Titanic sank in 1912, it exposed major gaps in the maritime industry.
Was it a U.S. flag vessel?
No.
The Titanic?
No.
That's what I'm saying. Okay.
It came from Europe.
no, but Solus is
I
an
know.
IMO.
I'm just.
So yeah, it was.
So globally, people got together and put in these safety measures. Yes, nations came together to create SOLAS, establishing the first global safety standards at sea. And it's kind of scary because there weren't these safety standards before. People just were like doing things. So the real shift wasn't just in the rules, but it was in the mindset. Before the Titanic, safety regulations were inconsistent, but after the Titanic, the maritime safety became global responsibility. So whether you're offshore or on a supply vessel crossing the ocean, you're operating inside a system that was shaped by those lessons. And those standards are what we still follow today, and they're still being updated today to ensure that this incident never happens again.
Yes.
That is interesting, and I'm sorry. But I was excited that I knew something. I was looking back at my emails, and if you're over 100 gross ton, it's you have Solus kicks in is the word I use.
I would say if you are on a domestic route, you don't have to comply with international regulations, and I think
Correct.
But that would be a whole change. But
Correct. But anyway,
something that we've thought about
when
that.
you operate internationally, you have to have it. So because that's one of the things that I've learned in taking this on over the last few years. Okay, well, thank you, Ajel. Clap, clap. Once again, I'd like to point out that drugs was brought up again on our podcast.
Wait,
This is the third time I brought up marijuana.
oh, okay.
Maybe the captains were doing something. Who knows on the Titanic? I don't want to start any rumors.
I used to know the captain's name.
Although I could say I was like, you're old, but not that old.
No.
Anyhow.
All right. Well, I hope everyone has a good weekend.
Yep, YOLO. See you at the fest.
Everyone be safe.
Happy Friday.
That wraps up another episode of Maritime in America. We're proud to highlight the voices and stories that keep the American offshore industry strong. Thanks for spending a few minutes with us, and remember, the course ahead is shaped by those who step up and steer. If you liked what you heard, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your crew. Tune in every Friday for your offshore briefing, and don't miss our next full episode, dropping soon with a very special guest, Mariner's Perspective. Catch you next time.